Okay, cool. All right, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today to UI UX, your first project and case study with Grace here today. We're so lucky to have her share some of her insights and maybe some of her experiences with us today. But before we jump right into it, really briefly, we're coming to you today here as SB Creative Lab, and we're actually a brand new design organization here at UC Santa Barbara. Primarily, our mission really is to bring design resources to our community. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or like a very seasoned designer. The goal is really to be able to foster connections and grow in your design journey. And the way we are interfacing with people, primarily this past quarter, has been through the form of workshops like the one you're at currently. Looking forward, actually, for winter quarter, we'll be doing 2 design challenges. We'll actually be doing a graphic design and also an illustration design challenge. So if you're interested in that, definitely stay tuned for that. And looking even further beyond that, in spring quarter, we'll be actually hosting our very first spring design-a-thon. And that topic will be centered around UI UX, which is also the topic of today's workshop. So I'm sure a lot of you are excited. Hang tight for information. Our logistics and design team are working really hard to get all of that information together and to bring that to you all. So yeah, without further ado, because I know you all are really excited to hear from Grace, I'm actually going to turn the mic over to her right now so she can share her slides and tell us a little bit about herself too.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on, Esther. I'm really excited. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a nice day. I'm going to share my screen. So yeah, I actually made all my slides in Figma and implemented my own design style to it as well. Thank you, Joyce. And so for me, I actually came from design from a non-traditional path and learned a lot through feedback and getting feedback on my case study. So I'll kind of share what I learned through feedback and to design my portfolio when applying to jobs, assuming that's what everyone kind of is thinking about doing right now. And throughout this presentation, I'll be checking, I have the chat open, so you're welcome to ask me any questions. If it's like kind of relevant to the current topic, I'll answer it. Otherwise, I'll also have some time at the end for questions as well. And I'll also be showing examples from my own portfolio and how I structure my case study and iterated it based on like the feedback I got. And I did make all my slides in Figma, and Figma is like a great tool, not sponsored, but I just love Figma and I'm a fellow Figma fan. And yeah, so without further ado, let's buckle up, fasten your seatbelts because you're about to be blown away. And I always say that before my presentations. Yeah. So for this adventure today, we are going to start with the introduction. I'll talk briefly about my background and how I got into design. I'm also happy to answer any questions about going to design from an untraditional path. And I'll talk about case study, the content you should have, and I'll walk you through 2 of my main case studies at when I did my internship at Electronic Arts and my first ever case study and me redesigning or adding a feature to Discord for a class I took called Students Who Design last fall. And then I'll end with a Q&A. And so I'm actually an incoming designer at EA and finishing up my last week this week as an intern. So I'm starting full-time next week and I'll have in the span of a week. So it's been a little crazy, but really exciting. I work on mostly design systems and a bunch of like player experience and employee experience projects. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. And on the side, I also run a design community called Design Buddies and design all the graphics for it and run a team of like 40 admins and moderators. It's super exciting. Thank you. Really excited. Like how you're really excited to see that you're excited about Design Buddies too, man. And I'm also a student at Santa Clara University in California, studying computer science and engineering because I thought I wanted to be a game developer, but later moved to design without actually studying design in school. And I'm from San Jose, California, born and raised here all my life. And for fun, outside of design and school, I run my own art business. I used to table at anime conventions pre-Rona season. And I also create a lot of, I call it a coronavirus. I call it the Rona just because I feel like COVID, people say it too much. So I feel like just jazz it up, say Rona instead. And I also really love to do social media blogging and create content to help students, designers, community builders, and just be helpful and talk about my experiences as I've learned. So other people can not learn to like not make the same mistakes I did. Yes, the Rona. But yeah, so a little bit of my background is growing up, I really want to be an anime artist. I've imagined myself working in game design, a game designer and anime artist. I was always that random kid in class who screamed to keep people on their toes, and I would never imagine myself studious or working in STEM at all. I always loved entertaining people. And around the same time, I also ran cross country and track, really loved running, and had a run blur, or like a running blog on Tumblr called Run Blur. Like that's how I got into social media and blogging. And then in college, my undergrad was in bioengineering and pre-med. I wanted to become a neurosurgeon because I wanted to learn how to biohack myself to run faster in the form of learning how to reduce pain and running with my brain. So that was my goal in college, and I was pre-med. I did research in labs, and then I learned the hard way that I shouldn't be doing things just for my name, but just to like look good on my resume. And I was just doing it, going to lab, but I was hating every moment of it. So I switched over to computer science and game design. I taught myself how to make a game in this lab, this VR lab that opened up at Santa Clara University, and kind of got into that field. I also started my art business on the side, just a table at anime conventions, just because I just like to draw, and I never really let go of that childhood interest of mine. However, doing a few internships in game dev and game design, I realized I don't really like to code. And I feel like I kind of miss that creative aspect of work or like coding, because I'm just like staring at an algorithm, trying different things and trying to stare at it until it works. So I didn't really enjoy that. So I later found UI, UX, and product design through this class called Students Who Design, and really liked it and did a project and decided to switch my career to that. But along the way, that journey was rough because I didn't have any mentors at school. And so I created Design Buddies because I wanted to make some design friends online. And since April of this year, we have almost 12,000 buddies join. So it's been super exciting. And yeah, so I just kept trying out different things. So Laura asked, do you do game design in CS undergrad or is my master's? So my undergrad was in bioengineering on a pre-med track, but I did minor in computer science and engineering. And my grad degree is in computer science and engineering. It's different from computer science at my school because computer science is more theoretical and computer engineering focuses more at the application. Cool. So now I'll talk about some contents, and I also like added some examples of what I did. And the example I'll be using is my case study at EA. And basically a case study is like the story of your project. Like recruiters, hiring managers, and designers always focus on storytelling, and story meaning you have a beginning, middle, and end, and you have a problem you're trying to solve. Like think of like the hero's journey, but applying that to your case study. So you start with the main problem, and you're trying to like walk the user through how you solved it and how you as a main character worked with your team to solve that problem or work by yourself. And so a really big question I get every day is how do you like find projects to actually do case studies on? Because when I was a student, I was like, I want to do design, but like, I don't know where to find these projects. And definitely internship is the best way. Like usually these projects through internships, whether it's paid or unpaid, I have feelings against like unpaid internships, but try to get internships, whether to get real world experience. That carries the most weight in the recruiting cycle. However, sometimes, times are tough right now. It's really hard. The economy and everything is really rough. So there's also ways to get experience without a job. And this is exactly what I did. I did all of these things. And I did designathons, hackathons, online challenges. So things like Adobe Creative Jam, and I could always find them on Design Buddies. And that's honestly where I find these events. Hackathons, you can practice working with programmers and product managers. You can find all of them on DevPost, and Adobe also hosts a bunch. And so these group challenges are a great way to not only like test your design skills, come up with a problem from an idea, but also to work with engineers or other designers, which is a really crucial skill that you should also demonstrate throughout your case study, and what a lot of interviewers and hiring managers ask for, and what you do in real life in industry. You can also volunteer at nonprofit organizations. I have like 2 websites where you can find these organizations to volunteer at. And it's good to work on like real world projects as well, because you can like kind of collect metrics and iterate and ship things and actually make real impact. And lastly, you can do freelance work if you feel comfortable. So like paid work for clients. And I personally got most of my clients in freelance work just by posting on social media. And so that's another great way, like posting my artwork or a bit of design work on Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook groups are a great way too. But if you want to put yourself out there even further and take your freelance work even higher, there's like TopTal, Fiverr, and AngelList to find startups or other organizations to do freelance work for. And also negotiate your rate too, and don't overwork and underpay and stuff. And so now I'll show you a brief walkthrough of examples, and I'll go into each of the components of a case study more in depth. So here is, can you guys see my screen, my portfolio screen? I just want to make sure that I'm sharing my whole screen. Let me make sure my whole screen is shared. All right, so briefly, a case study is the story of a project. So for my example, I worked at EA summer and fall, but this is my summer internship. And I started with like a brief overview of what I'm solving and the main problem. Like this is like the thesis of the story. Like how might we enable players to find help faster? Essentially, I did a redesign of the EA help homepage. And I worked with my team, highlighted all the important things recruiters look for. Let's see, like, oh, this person like worked with PM, that's a good skill. And like overall, like what impact you had, like this summary all up front. And then the final designs, like what did you actually make? And then the problem backed by research, quantitative data, a great way to prove problems. And also like talking about the problems even more, like what problems people had with the current pages, doing some market research, wireframes, and just like kind of step-by-step process and how I started from the problem, started ideating solutions, weighing out pros and cons, and then choosing one and justifying why this one, like this design works better because it meets like user needs and business goals, iterations, user testing, results, takeaways, and subsequent iterations from the results. And so it's like the story, like how I'm like learning from each part of the story and continuing the story this way. And further iterations and showing the whole comparison. So like summarize the whole story and less next steps and also lessons learned, which is really, really important that not a lot of people kind of talk about. And so yeah, I just showed a lot of information. So I'll walk through each section individually so it makes more sense. But that's essentially like the rundown of a whole case study. So let me share my slides. Cool. And so case studies are really, really important because they essentially build the foundation of portfolio. So your portfolio is essentially your case studies, 2 or 3 of your best work, because you're only as good as your worst project. And also like an about page. And I like usually like, so 4 pages total is like bare minimum for portfolio. Your home page, which showcases your projects, and your about page, which showcases you as a designer and what kind of you can like kind of paint a picture of what kind of industry you're interested in working in, talking about your hobbies, your major, and your background, and then or your design journey even. So you can really put anything on your about page, and then your case studies. So 4 pages total is like the bare minimum MVP of a portfolio. And case studies are the overall like thing that recruiters and hiring managers and everybody looks at the most. And it really just showcases your story and process and how you work and communicate, because those are traits, how hiring managers like kind of assess you as a portfolio. So how you move on to the next stage of the interview process. Just like for a job, it's like basically all design internships, even internships, and full-time roles and even entry-level roles, they ask for a portfolio. And so they just like need to have a good understanding of thinking and professional process. And yeah, that's why it's super important. And also being able to like describe and present your information, like talk through it during the interview is also another crucial skill to have as well. And so this is like a brief overview of like a little checklist you should always have in your portfolio, like purpose, like how might we like do this project, or how might we like enable players to find help faster. So this is like the problem statement you're trying to solve, and your hypothesis kind of like iterations, like I think this flow would like make the users understand this, like find the help they need faster. Team members and communicating how you work with these team members is really important to showcase your teamwork skills, which is the key skill recruiters and hiring managers look for. Your role, and timeline and deliverable. Oh, Karen asked what time you think we'll wrap up. So we have about an hour, and then I'll like kind of talk through and answer as any questions as you want. So I'll leave at least 15 to 20 minutes for questions at the end. Um, yeah. And a timeline of your project and deliverables like artifacts, prototypes, screenshots, personas, like anything, and outcomes and lessons learned. So what you learn from research and also what you learn from this project. Like you learn like importance of research, you learn that to deal with some difficult stakeholders. So this could be anything. So this is like a brief overview of everything you should always include in your portfolio. However, each process is also different. And I feel like, so for me, when I talk to other designers, they feel like it's like really templated. And especially this is kind of a problem because boot camps, they always like market themselves as, oh, if you follow our process, you'll like get a job and stuff. It's like really cookie cutter designers, but design, it's not like a it's not a strict process because in real life you deal with constraints, you deal with leadership decisions, business goals, user needs, and all these changing variables and different priorities shift all the time in companies. And so I've experienced that firsthand at my 6 months so far at EA. And so it's really important to be flexible. And so your case study shouldn't be a template. You shouldn't like do word for word, but it should focus on the process, you design thinking and how showcasing how you think through a solution for your project. So don't follow any of this as a template, but use these as kind of like a guideline of things you should include to have parts to tie your story together. But ultimately it should be coming from like how you think through a problem, like yourself as a designer, instead of like what other people thinks. And so at the beginning, you definitely want to set the context. So the problem, so I like to start with like a how might we question, like how might we and make it easier for players to find help faster? Because the problem that I found with the current EA help homepage is that players are, I say players as users, because that's what you use at EA. And so players are having issues finding help that they need. So submitting help tickets and the goal and how it relates, like why is it important to solve the problem? And not only does it say like less tickets solved, it's cost saving for the business and also less frustrating for the player. So there's like a business need and user goal tied to that problem. And this is why it's like setting the context and justifying why it's important and why the user or the reader of a case study should care about this. And visions, like you can tie it to like the overall company vision, like less toxicity. So sometimes when gamers get really mad, they like kind of express their anger in forums and stuff, and it kind of affects companies' reputation. So overall, less toxicity, improvement in player satisfaction, etc. And so I'm just using these examples from my case study, but these can be applied to like any other case study too. And obviously your team and your role and how basically you're setting the characters in that story. So the context, the plot is the problem, and the players or the setting is your problem, and your team and your role are the main characters in your story of your case study. And so this is just like the screenshot from my case study, how I start with the problem. And then also like if you worked at an internship, it's important to do NDA. There's also different levels of NDA. So I had to just change some of the numbers and omit some stuff here. But it's important, really, really important to include this, especially if it's like an internship from a company. And highlighted some skills, which are what things recruiters and hiring managers look at. Like, oh, they're looking for someone with design system. So I have that there. Your team, who you worked most closely with, and make sure to like talk about how you worked with them to showcase that throughout your story. So these are like main characters in your story, and you want to show how you interacted with them, how you worked for them. And so I would say something like throughout the presentation or throughout my case study, I would say like I worked with PMs to help come up with usability test questions or help define problem requirements and stuff like that. And I worked with my manager to do design critiques. And kind of your specific role so I was a UX design intern working under my manager. And then I also have an objective and overall, like this is like the main finding, the main overall impact, increasing task completion rate of the site from 25% to 92%. The overall like impact, how the like basically the impact the redesign made for the overall project and your goal too. And so like sometimes like it's like good to like think about things you need in that in this section. So like who is your company, your end product, and what's a user problem business goal. I bolded user problem business goals because these are key things designers like we had to like care about every single day. Making sure that it's improving the user experience, but also meeting business goals, meeting constraints, and meeting company requirements and stuff. And so I always also make sure to like making sure you tie every single design decision throughout your case study to either it's like solving a business problem or user goal, and just like tying that together and staying in line with the story. And what's your role within the team? What kind of tools and methods you use? Like I did design systems, UX design, user research, and what major insights like that, improving the task completion rate from 25% to 92%, and metrics related to the project in the beginning. So it's good to highlight like the overall paint a picture of the setting and the main characters involved in that story of your case study. And so it's also important to like talk about the problem to make the reader care that, or to really justify that this is like an important problem to be solved. And so I also had like the market research section, which I can showcase next, and what makes this a real problem. So like doing some competitive analysis, like this is what our market is doing. So I looked at a lot of like other game sites at EA, because a lot of people who play like Riot games and stuff like that. So they have like a similar mental model. And also past user research. Like we previously done a usability test of the current site, of the old site, and finding a lot of problems with that. So we highlighted those as well. And so examples, you can use these deliverables to like show these justifications of why it's a real problem, is that you can use like analytics, like usage data, testing, market research, comparing pros and cons, and different common patterns used in industry. And also we can also do user interviews and survey results from that. So it's like the user research before you design everything. Try to like really validate the problem and prove that it's actually a real problem that the company should care about and the reader of your case study should care about. And this is me trying to expand on the problem. And this is just like data from other usability tests. And I put 5 million players are struggling because that's the amount of average usage is a month of EA help. And so I have that big and bold, and I have my information hierarchy, so it highlights the most important information up front first. And like 80% had difficulties navigating themes. And I also like make sure to note that this is out of like 30 players tested and stuff. And which led to my goal of solving that problem and enabling players to find help faster, because they were really confused. And these numbers are from usability testing, running these through different tasks and seeing if they can complete them in the current site. And to further frame the problem, I also looked at market research. So other companies users use, it's important to look at the competitors, because oftentimes like players who play EA games also play Riot games too. And so it's important to make sure that the flow is really similar to their help sites as well, and having different patterns I found and highlighting them as well. And also it's important to understand, like highlighting the users, because in UX design, it's user experience design. So you had to show that you kind of understand the users as well. And sometimes like, this is like not a checklist, but this is something that sometimes people use depending on the project. And so you can include like personas, and personas are basically like your summary of all the users you researched, like the average of the users. Like let's just say the persona is like 22 years old, and like the average age you found is 22 years old, and things like that. The average pain points and stuff as like one user, because when you're kind of thinking of a problem, like you can find all these different users, and sometimes it's like good to like average them out so you can focus on like one user you're designing for. So personas are the average. And also thinking about the user's mental model, how they think through problems, it's really important putting yourself in these shoes and empathizing with them. And also sometimes you're showing a journey or customer experience map. And so it's really important to also talk about your team and how they were involved. Not only gives them credit, but also shows that you're a good team player and can work well with other people, especially as a designer. Working with product management, engineering, leadership are the key players, the key main characters you work on at your adventure at the company or at your internship or full-time role. And also talking about how you dealt with this constraints like deadlines, budgets, limited resources, and talking about how you can deal with all these factors outside of control and how you can design accordingly and kind of proceed in a project accordingly. And so the middle, so stories have beginning, a middle, and end. So now we're adventuring to the middle section. And so basically these are kind of the steps you took to go to your solution. And usually I start, so the user research kind of began the beginning/middle section where I kind of proved my problem. And also like based on the problem, I would start ideating solutions for that. So sketches, low fidelity, photographs, diagrams, affinity mapping, and all these different things. And this is definitely not a checklist, but just some guidelines, just some ideas you can have to kind of showcase your thought process, like from low fidelity to high fidelity, some ideas you had through brainstorming, and also your process. So these artifacts meaning I like these little things like screenshots and like pros and cons, these things they can show to kind of frame your context and to show your process even more. And definitely show your process, like some iterations you have and challenges you went through early on and how you overcame them, kind of like finding the monster in the story or finding the conflict in the story. So having that in your story of a case study is also important, and how you resolve conflicts, because that's also a really common thing, or not common, but sometimes can come up and during the workplace. And it's important to showcase that you can deal with these things professionally. And remember to annotate it. So remember to like point things so you know where the user is looking at. So to like annotate things, to like describe things further. And yeah, so you can have, so examples you can have to showcase these things are diagrams, pen and paper, or low fidelity wireframes, or site maps, kind of like the information hierarchy of your website. And if you did early testing, your constraints you found and how you ideate through them. Because the number, like one of the top interview questions I get asked is like, how do you deal with problems? Or like, what problems did you face and how did you overcome them? So like the STAR method: situation, task, answer, response. So highlight the STAR and incorporate some STAR method things in your case study as well to frame your story even further. Yeah, so these are just some low fidelity wireframes. I like to showcase pros and cons because it shows my product thinking and how I can think through this design and how it ties to the overall product. And so like the cons, like, oh, these players spent a longer time looking for the game, and it's like sacrificing user needs, and also the promotional content is lower, so sacrificing business goals because they're trying to add more business, like balancing user experience and business side as well. And this one is better because it has a higher task completion rate, and also the promotional content is a bit higher, so it meets the business goals better, so you can see the promotional content more. And this is some user testing I did, just highlighting the goal of the user testing, the impact, the tool, players tested metrics, and tasks I ran through usability testing, and the results of each little test I had, and also start with like the overall result to frame the problem even more. And then annotating. So this is kind of like the first iteration that came out outside my after my usability testing, and I seeing how I like designed some more elements and added the high fidelity version, and seeing how they meet the user needs or business goals. I have them highlighted because that's something hiring managers look at a lot. And so I made it easy for them to find. So essentially, you're also designing for like, you're designing your portfolio is a design project, and your target audience is recruiters and hiring managers. So always when you're designing artifacts or anything in portfolio, making sure the important information is clear to see is also important to meet the needs of your users and your audience of recruiters and hiring managers, because recruiters and hiring managers spend an average of 30 seconds looking through your whole portfolio. So it's important to make sure that they get to the point right away. So I always add different bolding and highlighting different points and stuff, and making sure that everything is annotated so I can find things easier. So don't get frustrated and abandon the flow and throw your or like kind of not looking at the rest of your portfolio, not considering for the job. So it's important to think about that whenever you're designing these things for a portfolio, because it's easy to like add a bunch of screenshots, but it's also important to like add annotations, like point to exactly where you're referring to, like the important parts of that screenshot, because these hiring managers and recruiters are spending so little time on your portfolio. And also the conclusion. So like the last part of that story is making sure you're answering the initial question, talking about how you would measure success, or kind of proceeding on from that. And I like to show like impact, like how much did my designs improve the solution, like how did the task completion rate increase, kind of constraints I dealt with and problems I faced along the way. And also lessons learned from research. Like, let's say through user research, I learned that users preferred search bar up front and things like that. But also like lessons learned kind of like project in life, like what would you do differently had given more time, or you learn to deal with difficult stakeholders, or you learn to deal with difficult PMs. It could be anything. The PMs are at EA wonderful though. I'm just using them as an example. So I can talk about dealing with difficult like people user tested with, difficult leadership changes, things like that too. And so this is my example of conclusion. I also took next steps because this project is actually not live, but I got permission from my manager to share it. So I'll give some context because people will be wondering that, and also lessons I've learned. It's important to highlight this. This is like something that I got a lot of comments on too, that is important to include. And also, it's important to know that quality over quantity, max 2 or 3 strong projects that really tells the why about what you want to do. And you're only as good as your worst portfolio piece. So making sure, I made this mistake earlier where I just like inputted everything. And yeah, I cut down my portfolio by like 70% after that. So making sure that your work you want to do is work that you would show a hiring manager, and the work that reflects who you are right now, not some work I did like when I was like in middle school or like in high school or something. And so when choosing what projects, and also like making sure I answer these like key questions, kind of like summarizing it all throughout my case study, is like, why was this the right project to solve, and like why was the best UX, making sure users like know how to navigate through these things, and like why is the right solution to business, and like what was your role involved, and just like making sure you include all these things is like really key to prove your why, just to like kind of sum it all up. And like insights, actual proof, feedback from users, data, to like, so all these things are really important to prove your success. And another really big question I get asked is, how would you measure success? So we can use these things like users said this, users did this, or users were able to complete this task, like how many users were able to. And things like that, like using actual like qualitative and quantitative data in your portfolio all throughout. Those are really important. So kind of try to choose projects where you can showcase these data when you're trying to think about what projects you want to put in your portfolio. And also some more general tips is to like sometimes you've like a question I wondered myself was like, if it's not a real project, I shouldn't probably include it. But in reality, like that's false, because recruiters care, or hiring managers and people looking at portfolio care about the process and critical reflection, kind of like how you think through problems. So sometimes my first ever case study was actually designing a feature for Discord, even though it wasn't actually a real project, I was through a practice, but I was still able to present it during interviews because they care about the process I took to solve the problem, not the actual like end product and stuff. So don't worry about it if you couldn't find a real project. You can always pick an app to like find a pain point and redesign it. That was like a good first project for me as well. And also being clear what worked well, what didn't, and just being really concrete with your design decisions, really important through your portfolio. And overall, like a story has 3 parts, beginning, middle, and end. So making sure your portfolio also has this current flow as well. And then also keep the text minimum, really focus on like readability, because the recruiters and hiring managers spend an average of 30 seconds looking at your portfolio, and keeping that in mind. And then so I'll go through really quickly 2 of the case studies. I kind of went through my EA one as well, so I'll go through my Discord one just to show another example. So my Discord one's actually my personal first case study, and I've actually redone it 3 times. And so this is my 3rd iteration. My first one was night and day, but I will only show the 3rd one for now because that one's a better example. And so here we go. Yeah, so Discord was the case study I did for a class called Students Who Design. And I have basically feature design. I was the sole designer on it, so I just kind of contextualized when it was, and also a timeline, which is like October is actually when I started learning design for the first time in my life. And yeah, so I like to start with the how might we, and then start with like little context skills I used, skills, team, me, a solo project, making that clear. Brief overview of what Discord is, studying the context, having a final prototype here. Sometimes you can also embed your Figma link if your portfolio site allows that, so people can interact with it, or showcasing videos is good too. Cool, thank you. And yeah, so showing research insights, how I conducted the interviews, kind of studying the context of the story, also using some user research, some market research, some problems, and to like overall having these user market research insights drive to narrowing down my problem and proving that my problem is an actual problem, and doing research to back my decisions. And how I ideated it, and have takeaways, like basically categorize problem spaces and like how I would think through solutions. The solutions, thinking of some requirements, like sum it all up. And then information hierarchy. So this is kind of like the map that I kind of like briefly touched on earlier, like how my solution kind of fit into the overall context of the app. And so the pink one is the bookmarks I included on Discord. And in the chat, feel free to let me know if you prefer Discord or Slack. I'm just curious as well. Or if you guys are familiar with Discord as well. And Discord, it's like a voice chat app, or not voice chat. It can do all. It's like a social app where you can have like communities. It's like Slack, but more casual and better. And yeah, so it's a similar to Slack. So this flow is similar to Slack, but Discord style. And I just kind of integrated my feature in Discord. That's awesome. I love Discord too. Design Buddies is on Discord as well. Discord designers are also really great to talk to. And yeah, so I've also had, so after having the sitemap and the skeleton in place, the UX in place, I started drawing low fidelity exploration. Sketching is a great way, because I feel like there's something about putting your sketches, like pen and paper, or in my case, my iPad, that helps you like think better as well. So sometimes people go directly to wireframe, but I still personally think, and also a lot of people think, it's like good to start with sketches, because it just like helps you think better. And annotate things, just like basic flows and stuff. And then after I have my sketches, I kind of like run them over, get some brief feedback, and then start with medium fidelity explorations and keep going towards higher fidelity. And also like did different flows, talked about the pros and cons and why I chose the pros over the cons, and saying some context. And then did some testing and iterations, usability testing, running different users through tasks I'll have them go through my app design. And then doing some further iterations through usability testing, exploring different ways I would display the bookmarks, so some visual design, and different ways I'll explore the categories. And so basically the pain point I found is that people have trouble keeping up with messages on Discord. So I just like designed a bookmark feature that integrates in the app. So it's like over here, or over here, over here, or over here as the first one, as the last one I've ended on, to have the users be able to access the bookmarks and be able to customize it to customize their experience. And yeah, access their bookmarks, prototype again to kind of really showcase what I did, and also some metrics. So this is an example of like not a real project. That's not a business project. My first project, I did not do any metrics, but I got always asked about how I'd measure success. So I just included how I would measure success if it were a project, to show that I know to show that I know what I would do in this situation. So yeah, I have that here. So it's really, really important to have these, because I always get asked those questions. And how it measures positive business outcomes, to show that, because my whole case study was mostly about the user, making their lives easier, but also like companies, they need to make revenue. So I would showcase how this would make users more revenue, like, oh, more users will like have a better experience, so they recommend this app more, or more users will love this Discord more, so subscribe to like Nitro more, to like use it better, to become more power users, things like that. Also edge cases, making sure that, especially when I work with developers, like what would like an unusual user do? So like spring cleaning, like what if a user wants to like delete a mass amount of bookmarks, and what they do, and things like that to consider. And also takeaways, highlighting challenges, lessons I've learned. And yeah, so this is my case study for Discord. And let me go back to Figma. And yeah, so that concludes my presentation. I'll be welcoming any questions now for the next 17 minutes. And feel free to connect with me on any of my social media platforms and join Design Buddies. Cool. Thank you. So Linda asks, what did you use to create your portfolio? Oh, thank you. It's really clean and cute. Yeah, I used Webflow actually. My first portfolio was Webflow has definitely a learning curve, but it's really fun. It's like after using Webflow, I would never go back to any other any other website builder. I previously used WordPress, but Webflow is I highly recommend it. Um, and then Hannah asked, do you have any recommendations for online portfolios and websites in terms of hosting platforms, portfolios? Yeah, so let me give you an example. Host any portfolios and websites. Yeah, so I haven't looked at too many tools, but so in Design Buddies, Nadia, one of our admins, actually did a whole comparison in the FAQ New to Design channel in Design Buddies about all these different compare and contrast. But the ones I personally used are WordPress and Webflow. And so I can't answer for any other ones just because I've never personally used it. But another common ones are people use Squarespace or Wix or Carbon, I think Cargo or Cargo, I believe, and Adobe Portfolio or UX Folio. And I can like type these in the chat as well. And so there'll be like Webflow from the Webflow, WordPress, Squarespace. These are the common ones I've seen: Squarespace, Wix, Cargo, and then Adobe Portfolio are the most common ones I've seen. I've seen some people use Google Site as well, or Notion as well. So these are more unconventional, but it works too. And so if you're into that as well, you just need like a pretty URL wrapper for those. And let me scroll up for the questions. So Jacob asked, how did you conduct user research? Yeah, so I mostly, so it depends. I use so for my EA project, I've talked to, EA had this database of people that signed up for the user research. So I just emailed them. I also posted in Design Buddies in like different places to find user research. And the type of research I did was actually unmoderated. So I would write down a script of things I would walk the user through and different tasks they would do and observe how they do it and look at their mouse interactions and like ask them questions like, how did you think this task was, how easy it was, ranking from like 1 to 10 and all that stuff. So and then also like measuring the average of like the user satisfaction if they were able to complete the task. And for Discord, my Discord project, I just kind of asked my friends that I was hanging out with before the Rona and to like just test this app and tell me how it looks and count that as user research. But also, and so that's like usability testing, user research, but we're trying to define the problem. So that's like kind of going back early. So maybe I should have explained this part first, but I would ask questions so that's user research for usability testing, but for user research to find a problem, you can ask questions like, rank this feature from 1 to, or rank like, what do you think are the most important things, like most important features of Discord, or like, what current pain points, like what do you like and dislike about the product, what do you remember of the product, what do you think of this product, and things like that to find the pain points and try to like analyze, like gather all of them too to frame your problem. And so Christina asked, do you have any recommendations? What kind of tablet could be good for beginners? Yeah, so I've only used the iPad Pro and Apple Pencil combination, but I know there's like Wacom Intuos, and I think they're about less than $100. I can make browse a few years ago, but I used to use that to draw my not phone, but like my laptop using Photoshop and stuff. But yeah, I don't know any others, but I know Samsung and Windows also has a few tablets, but yeah, I personally don't know because I haven't used any other tablet before. And so Amy asked, would you mind sharing tips for managing school and internship at the same time? Yeah, so it's all about prioritizing. So school, I feel like it's like kind of the rule of diminishing returns. And for school, I just need a B- to pass. And if I get like a B- or A-, and that's like 20 extra hours a week difference of studying, and it won't do anything for my career. And so I think about like what I want to do in the long run and think about like what steps I would take to get there and prioritize accordingly. So I just focus on passing. That's how I balance everything. Yeah, and I just like think about, it also depends on your goal in life. If you want to go to grad school, your grades are very important for that. But for me, I'm personally done after grad school, so that's why I chose to prioritize this way. So it all really depends on your personal goals. So don't just like drop your grades all the way. If you're thinking of grad school, and it's really important to keep your grades up, and that's probably your priority. And also, another tip I always do is when people like ask me to do things and don't give me an actual time, I always like under promise and over deliver. So what that means is I tell them like twice the amount of time I think would take me to do that task, and then finish in like half the time and like wow them. And so I always do that when giving myself deadlines when there's other people involved. So that helps too. And also, my life lives on Google Calendar. If it's not on Google Calendar, it does not exist. So that's how I keep track of everything and manage everything, and see my bandwidth and things like that to make decisions. Yeah, so that's how I manage my time. Um, and so Joy says, how long did it take for you to land a UI UX position from the beginning of your self-learning journey? So I learned design first, and I took student to design that. So I was from October to December 2019, and I landed my internship at EA and started in June, but actually landed the offer in May. So it was like really last minute. And then my full-time role was last month. Well, I got it like the offer 2 weeks ago. So November. So I guess about 8 months for internship, and 1 month and like 11 months for full time. But definitely don't compare yourself to other people, because everyone has their own journeys and stuff. And for me, I definitely did all this while doing school full time, but I also like didn't prioritize my grades, and so that also factored in it. And I also have a background in drawing anime, and draw a lot of drawing, so that also helped me a lot too in game design. So everyone's on their own journey, but that's how it took me personally, how long it took me personally. It was a lot of work and it was not easy, but it was really rewarding once I had like goal and stuff. And so Laura asked, do you have a lot of internship experience before a internship? Yeah, I did actually, at completely different fields. I actually worked in a cell culture lab. I did research in biomedical engineering and gene therapy for a freshman and sophomore year of college. I also interned at a hospital as a medical scribe because I thought I was going to be pre-med. And then I also interned at a VR research lab at my school, also at Girls Make Games. So I was like a camp counselor, teaching girls how to make games and being a producer for a game. And also interned at Institute of Surgical as a virtual reality robotic surgery game developer intern. That was my job title. Last summer, I made games to train surgeons to do surgery, and I worked with the Da Vinci robotic surgery. So that was my personal internship experience before EA, but it's not really design related. It's more like bioengineering, medicine, game design. Well, game design is one, and development. So yeah. And so Durian asked, other than this Discord case study, what project did you present when applying for your internship? Yeah, so I can show my screen. So mostly it was actually, I just mostly went through one, but then again, it really depends how many you need. Usually from my personal experience, I've only get asked 1 or 2 projects when going through my portfolio presentation, but it's good to have about 2 or 3 in a portfolio just as a buffer in case you guys ask more, because it really depends. Like every hiring manager is so different. So I guess designing for more, a wider audience in terms of that. And so I can show you my portfolio when I applied. This is my really old one. Let's see if it still works. Oh, okay, it does not. Oh, this one. So how my portfolio looked like when I applied to EA for the first time as an intern, it looked like this. I just had this one, and this I had, yeah, EA, and I had, starting from here, I had my selfie game, my Discord bookmarks, a hackathon project I did, a brief description of my other internship. And yeah, so selfie, it's not an actual like UI, UX or product design specific one, but it's a game I made, took an idea and ideated a solution to the problem I found tying to my idea. So I could still showcase this in like product and UX design case studies because it showcased like similar design thinking. So when you think of projects, it doesn't always have to be strictly like web or mobile design. It could be like games or like a business you started. Like one of my friends, she has like a tea business. So she kind of like talked about her process designing for her business, and that also worked too. Yeah, so I just kind of like talked about how I made my game and like the features I included and how it ties to the overall problem. And yeah, so that was my first case study I have. And Amy asked, do we need to learn how to code to use Webflow? No, no code at all. I didn't touch a single line of code when making my portfolio. Webflow is specific and no code tool to help make coding or making websites more accessible, which I love. I'm a CS student, but I can't code. Like I can't code, but I can't actually code. Well, I can code for class, but like not actually make something. So Webflow is really great for me. They have a Webflow University though, has a lot of great tutorials that walked me through this whole thing. So all I had to do was like watch 2 hours tutorials total and to know how to like use Webflow to design my site. And so it's pretty good. Well, I guess it depends because I still had like web dev experience, but for me, that's how long it personally took me to learn Webflow and make my site. And like Webflow has good resources. Webflow University, University. So these are like, it's all free as well. And as a student, you can basically get Webflow 95% off. I am not sponsored. I'm just sharing perks allowed as a student. And so it's like a few, I think $1 a month. I forgot how much it turns to, but it's like less than $5 a month to host your site on Webflow as a student discount, which you have 1 year of. But Webflow has a great tutorials, and I just watched this crash course to learn how to do my site. And so this is like all I watched, 2 hours of videos to learn how to build my portfolio from scratch. So that's a good resource. Cool, I have 5 more minutes for any more questions. Let me see if let me scroll to make sure I didn't miss any too. Oh, where did I draw design inspiration from? Great question. So I like to, I joined a lot of like design groups. And for me, like I kind of focused my personal branding on like social media, and because I really like entertainment and social media, so that's why I have all like chat bubble shaped things and like pastel colors, a lot of blue, because a lot of social media apps are blue, symbolize like friendliness. So obviously I have a lot of blue in mine. And so I'm really inspired by like social media and just like ways people interact, like either interact with on a social media platform, interact within the game, and seeing how like entertainment relates to like being social and stuff. And so I really like following the game industry trends and community building online, running design buddies, and just like improving social connections online. And yeah, I guess that's where I like to like improve experiences of people to communicate and connect with each other on the internet, whether it's through games, social media sites, and stuff like that. And I also sometimes I look on Product Hunt. Product Hunt's great. I like lurk on there a lot to like look at the latest products and see what's popular and just like try things out. So I stick with trends. And a podcast I like to listen to is Robin Hood Snacks. So it's like the stock market trends and what businesses and what technology is booming. So I'll like read up about those topics too, and joining design buddies and joining a lot of communities to like see what people are talking about and like read up on articles people share. And so I draw inspiration from like a lot of things. But my main focus is like social media and community building. Cool. And Joyce asks, thanks for giving us resources. Yeah, you're welcome. How can we create own projects? And what other resources would you recommend self-studying UI UX? Yeah, great question. I should include a slide in this. But I personally learned through students who design. I don't know if they're still doing this course, who.design. And this is what helped. Oh, okay. But this course helped me the most when I was starting out, because they kind of walked me through how to do design and actually do a project. There's also like, I have this on my old portfolio. I just haven't made a page for it yet. Let me see if it still works. I think, oh, Yeah, so these are design resources I kind of compiled together. Resource compilations, which are lists of resources, learning design, degree list design, reading design communities can join, design tools. So let me link this in the chat. This is my old site, but it has all the resources I personally found useful. Um, Jacob asked other great design communities I'm part of. Yeah, well, I honestly don't really have that much time to check other communities. But I really like, let me think, because design buddies takes up most of my time. But I'm also part of Iterate UX, which is more focused on people who are older though, like boot camps and career changers. But I did talk with them. They're like really wholesome and did some voice chat, video chat with them too. And Hexagon UX is great, but they're on Slack and they're not too active. But I go there to see events, and sometimes I find interesting events and I share them in Design Buddies. Design X is one, but they're paid now. It's like $40 a year to get into this one now. ACN UX is good, Asian Creative Network, on Facebook. And yeah, so those are the ones I personally have met people in and have great connections with and went to great events with. There's like a lot out there. I'm in over like 99 or 100 to do some market research. We're doing Design Buddies because Design Buddies, um, so it is actually a UX project as well. I have like approach and impact, problem, process, outcomes and things like that too. So that's what I did during 99 QDs to design Buddies. And I followed a UX process, research, solutions, testing, iterating. But yeah, off topic. Also during NEST, do you have any general advice for self-learners on the path to landing internship? Yeah, so I guess like the biggest tip is to focus on projects and like thinking like ways to learn. Like I feel like the biggest mistake I personally made is that I used to feel like I have to like take this course or like read this article before I feel qualified to design something. But then I feel like the biggest thing you can do is like get practice, get your hands dirty, go into Figma, join a club, join like a design challenge, just like make stuff and get feedback and learn from that. Instead of just like reading is important, learning the fundamentals, but it's also really important to actually apply what you learn and do things. And you don't need permission to do that. So that's what personally taught me before, but I just learned to just go for it. And basically a little TLDR of my journey is like, I started with Student to Design. It was a little class I took, was free. And then I did 10 hackathons / design challenges. So yeah, from January till May, while being ghosted by most companies trying to apply for an internship, and then gone to EA, and then interned there for 6 months and starting full-time next week. So that's how I learned. That was my self-learning journey. And while joining a lot of communities, going to a lot of conferences, staying top of the trends, just casually. And so yeah, I personally don't really watch Netflix, but my Netflix is podcasts, design podcasts and design conferences. So well, that's how I did it in like a short time, I guess. So that's what personally I did. But everybody is different. And Selena asked, do you think there are cons in trying it all in terms of internships, or do you think it's important to kind of have a storyline throughout your internships? Yeah, I definitely think when you're young, especially if a student, it's definitely good to try it all. Like for me, I had like vastly different internships, and like I gotta kind of talk about my experiences in that and how that relates to design. Like for example, during interviews, I could say like engineering taught me a lot of systems thinking. Now I can like collaborate better with engineers. So it's good to get as many diverse experiences as possible, especially when you're young, because it not only helps you kind of understand the world better, and also like find out what you actually want to do. Because the thing you actually want to do, how you know that is it gives you the most energy. Like I thought I wanted to be a doctor, but then I realized I was actually looking forward to going home every day in my internship so I can draw and watch and design games. And so definitely try everything. There's no limit. The sky's the limit. And yeah, definitely Ghost is real. Yeah, I know the Ghost designer. Yeah. Cool. I know we're a little bit over time, so feel free to connect with me on any of my social media platforms if you have any further questions too, or join Design Buddies if you guys want to.
Awesome. Okay, I have 2 slides and then we will wrap up very, very quickly from there. So really quickly, from SB Creative Lab, we're actually looking for designers to join our team. I think we're hiring a total of 3 designers for winter quarter. So if you are interested, please apply bit.ly/SBCL design. We are open to people if you've never designed before too. We're just really interested in making sure everyone has the opportunity to continue growing in their design and creativity field. So definitely apply. And also stay connected with us. I would say our Slack and also website are the best two places you can check. Cicely, for like in relation to this workshop, this recording and also Grace's slides will be available. We'll be sharing them on Slack and our website as well. So definitely stay tuned there. And last but not least, thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate your time. I'm sorry, that turned really green. So before I close it off, I'm actually going to ask if you'd like to take a picture with everyone, turn on your cameras and we can take like a screenshot of that. So I'll stop sharing my screen. And then give everybody a second if you want to turn on your cameras for a picture. All right. I will give a countdown and then I will take a screenshot. So
Awesome.
everybody smile. 3, 2, 1. Yay. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great night. If you have finals, good luck on your finals. Take care of
Oh, yeah,
yourselves.
happy finals. I remember those times. Well, you got this all, everyone. It's only temporary. The pain is only temporary. So it'll be over soon. Something I used to tell myself during final season is that what personally hyped me up at that time was knowledge is power and power is fun. So that's what I used to tell myself during finals. It helped get me through tough undergrad times. So wish you all the best. I know how it feels. It was really rough during my time. Yeah, pain is temporary, pride is forever. So yeah, you'll get through this and it'll be winter soon enough.
Yay. Thank you so much, Grace. All
Yeah,
right.
of course. Thanks for having me on.
Bye, everybody.